Cold calling for account executives, tips and tricks. Cold calling isn't dead. Generic cold calling is. Cold calling for account executives still works in B2B when it's targeted, relevant, and run like a real revenue motion. The average dial-to-meeting success rate sits around 2.3%, which means you should expect roughly 2 to 3 booked meetings per 100 dials, unless you tighten your list, your message, and your timing. That sounds low until you remember what a single qualified meeting is worth in high ACV pipeline. What changed isn't the channel, it's the tolerance for lazy outreach. Prospects hang up on robotic scripts, vague value props, and calls that feel like a vendor reading a template. When you bring a clear point of view, a specific reason you called them, and a reasonable next step, the phone is still one of the fastest ways to create at-bats you fully control. In this guide, we'll focus on practical execution, how AEs can build a tight calling list, earn the first 30 seconds, qualify without interrogating, and book meetings that actually convert to opportunities. We'll also cover when it's smarter to use cold calling services from a specialized outbound sales agency instead of forcing an inconsistent in-house habit. Why AEs should still call, even with SDR coverage. Most AEs are reactive by default. Inbound demos, renewals, deal support, internal meetings, and quick asks that eat the day. Outbound becomes the thing you do when there's time, which is exactly how pipeline volatility gets created. A protected calling motion fixes that by giving you repeatable weekly inputs you can measure and improve. The math is sobering. US connect rates commonly land in the 3 to 10% range, so it can take 18 dials just to reach one live person. That's not a reason to quit. It's a reason to treat list quality and timing as first-class strategy, not afterthoughts. If you only call sporadically, you never get enough volume to learn what's actually working. SDRs are critical, but AEs bring different leverage. You have the deal context, you can multi-thread into power, and you can talk outcomes at the level decision makers care about. In practice, the best teams blend roles. SDRs generate volume, and AEs selectively call into high-value accounts, late-stage stakeholders, and expansion targets where a thoughtful conversation can move revenue fastest. Benchmarks and KPIs that keep your calling honest. If you want cold calling to be a strategic lever, not a random activity, track it like a funnel. At minimum, we recommend monitoring connect rate, conversation to meeting rate, dial to meeting rate, and meeting to opportunity rate. When any stage is weak, you'll know whether you have a data problem, a messaging problem, or a qualification problem. Market benchmarks give you a reality check. The average AE will land around 2.3% dial to meeting, while top-performing teams report 5 to 8%, a difference that can cut your calls per meeting from 40 plus down to 15 to 20. On top of that, one large dataset reported 4.82% of cold call conversations converting into meetings, which is a strong signal that coaching and talk tracks can materially move outcomes. Use the table below as a simple baseline for diagnosing where to focus next. If your connect rate is low, your list and timing need attention. If connects are fine but meetings are low, your opener and discovery need work. If meetings book but don't convert, your qualification and positioning are likely off. Set up the call before you ever dial. The fastest way to waste AE time is spray and pray dialing into a massive, unqualified list. No talk track can overcome low-intent targeting, wrong personas, or outdated numbers, especially when you're fighting single-digit connect rates. Instead, build an AE-owned target list of 50 to 150 accounts. Keep it refreshed weekly and prioritize accounts with signals like hiring, funding, tech stack fit, and recent engagement. Next, do just enough personalization to prove the call is intentional. A simple 3x3 routine, 3 minutes to find 3 relevant facts has been associated with conversion lifts of more than 80% in top-performing outbound teams. In practical terms, you're looking for one detail about the person, one detail about the company, and one trigger that makes your timing believable. Finally, write a 30-second opener you can deliver naturally. The biggest mistake we hear on recorded calls is reading a script word for word. Prospects can tell immediately, and trust evaporates. Use a script as a framework. Memorize your first line, your one-sentence value, your best qualifying question, and a clean close. Then, mirror the prospect's tone so it sounds like a real conversation. Cold calling doesn't fail because prospects hate the phone. It fails because most calls give them no reason to care. Run the call like a mini discovery, not a mini pitch. A reliable AE call structure keeps you in control without being pushy. Permission-based opener, a short problem hypothesis, 2 to 4 discovery questions, a value bridge, then a specific meeting ask. The goal isn't to close on the call. It's to confirm there's enough pain, impact, and urgency to justify a deeper conversation. When you treat the call like discovery, your meetings get better, and your meeting-to-opportunity rate improves. After your opener, lead with a hypothesis that's easy to react to, what you think might be happening in their world and why it matters. Then, ask questions that surface current process, impact, and ownership, without turning it into an interrogation. AEs often over-talk here. A simple self-check is whether you're hearing the prospect's words more than your own in the first 2 minutes. Close with a clear next step and a clear reason. Would it be crazy to grab 15 minutes next week to compare notes? Is fine, but let's do a quick working session to map X and see if it's worth fixing is better because it's outcome-based. When you book the meeting, set expectations. Who should attend, what you'll cover, and what they'll get, which increases held meeting rates and reduces no-shows. Objections are usually buying signals. Treat them that way. One of the most expensive AE mistakes is treating the first objection as a hard no. Send me an email, not a priority, and we already have something often mean the prospect is uncertain, busy, or unconvinced you're relevant, not that the conversation is over. A simple framework works consistently. Acknowledge, ask a clarifying question, then reframe value based on what they tell you. For example, when you hear, "We already have a vendor," acknowledge it, then ask what they like about the current approach and what they wish were better. That gives you permission to position your value as a complement or an improvement instead of fighting their reality. This is also where personalization matters. Data suggests personalized cold calls are about 20% more likely to produce a positive outcome than generic ones, and objections soften when your call clearly fits their context. Avoid the other common trap, running cold calling in isolation. If the phone has no support from email and social touches, prospects have no context and default to dismissal. Integrated cadences, where a call references a recent email open, a page visit, or a LinkedIn touch, make your outreach feel warmer and measurably increase the odds of getting a real conversation. Timing, cadence, and tooling, the levers most teams ignore. Timing is a real advantage, not a superstition. Calling during 8 to 9 a.m. and 4 to 5 p.m. in the prospect's local time has been associated with connect rate lifts of around 47% plus compared with off-peak windows. If you're not blocking protected call time, cold calling gets squeezed between meetings and disappears. So schedule 60 to 90-minute blocks 3 to 5 times per week and treat them like customer meetings. Cadence matters as much as scripts. A single call is easy to ignore, but a coordinated sequence of calls, email, and LinkedIn touches makes you familiar and creates multiple chances to connect. This is where a cold email agency approach pairs well with calling. Short, relevant emails that tee up the call. Then, a call that references the same outcome. Makes the outreach feel consistent instead of random. Finally, invest in the basics that raise your ceiling. Verified data, a quality dialer, call recording, and reporting you actually review. We recommend listening to 2 to 3 recorded calls per week and choosing one micro improvement: tone, pacing, first objection handling, or closing language. Over a month, those small changes compound, and that's how teams climb from 2 to 3% conversion into the 5 to 8% range.
When it's smarter to outsource cold calling, and what good looks like. There's a point where calling becomes a capacity problem, not a knowledge problem. If your AEs can't protect consistent call blocks, or your SDR team can't sustain quality volume, pipeline will always be lumpy, no matter how good your messaging is. That's when sales outsourcing can be more cost-effective than hiring, training, managing, and tooling an in-house calling engine. A strong outsourced sales team should bring 3 things: clean targeting, including list-building services, disciplined activity levels, and transparent reporting. For example, our SalesHive SDRs typically make 150 to 400 targeted calls per day, supported by processes for qualification, call recording, and performance tuning. If you're evaluating cold calling companies or an SDR agency, those operational details matter more than flashy promises. Looking ahead, the teams that win in 2025 and beyond will treat Outbound as an integrated system: phone plus email plus social, driven by intent signals, tight ICP discipline, and continuous coaching. Whether you build it internally or partner with a B2B sales agency, the next step is the same. Pick your target list, define your KPIs, protect your calling time, and iterate weekly based on what the data and recordings are telling you.